A group of climate disruptors have been going in and disrupting the events of Republican presidential candidates in Iowa. And they've been doing so, of course, creating viral social media moments like this one at the Ron DeSantis event, where they interrupted him and got tackled to the ground by his security.
Beat the left on banning China from buying land in the state of Florida. We did all this stuff.
He's a climate criminal! Ron DeSantis is a climate criminal! How much money are you taking from oil companies? How much money are you taking from oil companies?
Or this one at a Ron DeSantis Fox News town hall, where they also tried to interrupt him, but quickly were silenced by security.
For the sanctity of life. I'm the only one that's been able to do that.
No oil money! No oil money!
No oil money! No oil money! No oil money!
And of course, perhaps the most compelling and most interesting instance were at a Vivek Ramaswamy town hall in Iowa. These group of people tried to scream and shot him down. He told them to stop. But then also, he gave them a chance to speak. They didn't want to do that. Watch this.
The planet is not on fire.
These occurrences have justifiably elicited great responses from conservatives on social media who have said, almost universally, that the kids, the activists seen in these videos are nothing more than low-rate cultists. They are mentally ill or they are cultists. This is what's being said by the chattering classes on social media. Now, those of you who understand my project and know how I analyze political events understand that those kind of comments really upset me. They upset me not because they are false. In fact, I believe that it actually is true that certain political causes, and more so the institutional infrastructure around those causes, absolutely use mental illness as a tool to get activists and henchmen under their banner to fight for their causes. I believe that. I know that. I've studied that. I get that. But what I don't get is that if you are serious about winning the war on American civilization that is happening from these forces, these foreign ideals that have sneaked their way into our nation through lobbying groups, through political groups, through politicians, through media figures, through their agencies, then why in the world would you not want to understand the ideas that undergird this insanity? Why would people just want to sit back, cross their arms and say, oh, ha ha ha, those people are insane. Oh, they're crazy. They're mentally ill. You are literally losing the battle by embracing ignorance because it is more comfortable for a lot of people than actually thinking through what's actually going on. Now, I could make a whole video about that phenomenon and how influencers influence that phenomenon. But let's keep it on this group of activists. And let me try to help those of people who need it. Not everyone needs it. Some people are actually understand what's going on. But those people who need it and want a different perspective, let me actually try to shed some light about what's happening in Iowa with this group and about these people in general, and more generally, the ideas that guide their behavior. The group that has been doing this is called the Sunrise Movement. Now, in order to understand why they do what they do, you have to understand their origins. The Sunrise Movement is a 501c4 group, political action, public interest, so to speak, group that is formed around the promotion of a certain strain of environmental causes. Now, this group was founded, they were started by a grant from the Sierra Club and the Wesleyan University. These two details will be exceptionally important in a moment if you stick with me and listen and hear my argument out. Now, this group began after being given that $30,000 grant from the Sierra Club and the Wesleyan University. It began as a think tank of sorts, drafting climate action plans that environmentalist lobbyists could then take to Washington, take to Capitol Hill, and use to push their environmentalist agenda and also take to state capitals, which is why the first iteration of this group was the 2014 U.S. Action Plan on the Climate. It was a group. Now, eventually, this group evolved into a much different strategy. And the strategy around 2018, 2019 became not just drafting up plans and being a think tank, but being a public action, direct action group, which means they're going to go ahead and confront people, their political foes directly through protests, through interruptions, through petitions, things like that. And that's what they did. The Sunrise Movement then began to stage these kind of events. A famous one of these events was what they did with Dianne Feinstein when they had a group of kids go ahead and ask her about the climate. And of course, we understand how that went. That actually went brilliantly, in my opinion. And I'm not someone who's a fan of Dianne Feinstein. I think that she's one of the great villains of American politics over the past 20 plus or 30 plus years. But still, she did good in that interaction.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if
is
this
put
doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
You know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
And then they kept doing more things within that ilk. They kept being disruptors. They kept this petitioning going up. They kept interrupting people. And they started to get a lot of mainstream media coverage. They started to get endorsements of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Justice Democrats. They sat in on Nancy Pelosi's office, which was very big. But these people also were the driving force behind the Green New Deal. The Sunrise Movement literally drafted the Green New Deal. Okay. So, I mentioned they got a grant from a group called the Sierra Club. What is that group? The Sierra Club is one of the most powerful environmentalist lobbying groups in the entire country. The Sierra Club literally was around when Teddy Roosevelt, one of the, I don't want to say great, because I don't think his ideas were really great, one of the most prominent original progressive progenitors of old school leftist environmentalism. And this is the group that has not only pushed for the Green New Deal, this is the group that has been successful in some way, shape, and form in influencing state governments and state capitals to ban gasoline cars, which we know California is doing. This is the group that has been very influential in seeking to defeat fracking, which we know, due to the efforts of the environmental lobby, Joe Biden banned the United States from fracking. This is the group that has had some of the most significant policy victories. The Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, some of the most significant policy victories when it comes to environmentalism in America. This is the group that literally helped fund, establish, well, not fund, but literally helped give justification for the EPA's regulatory actions on the environment. When we all know, if you guys actually know, the EPA doesn't actually protect the environment. What the EPA does, in many cases, is they go in, they create catastrophes, and then they use that as a premise to create infrastructure to defeat those catastrophes and to broaden their regulatory scope. If you don't believe me, look at the 2014 Gold King water mine spill. The EPA literally polluted an entire fucking water source, and then after that, they went ahead and said, oopsie, we did it, and they shielded themselves from liability. The government poisoned a water source, killed fish, one of the most biggest disasters in the past 12 years, as I'm in this video. And then they shielded themselves from criminal liability and kept using that kind of thinking to impose burdensome regulations on the American people, to steal land from farmers in the name of environmentalism, or to co-op farming with subsidies in the name of environmentalism. And yet, as I explain all this to you, some people are still saying, oh, Christian, it's a cult. No. It is one of the most highly efficient and organized political organs in our system that has succeeded in causing carnage to how Americans see the environment and how also our policy about the environment is reflected in reality. A cult, you say? Oh no. But it's this kind of mediocre thinking that gets us from actually seeing what we need to see to beat these enemies. Now, I've already discussed these Sunrise activists, these kids, they are henchmen for a much more sophisticated enemy who is the real culprit, not them. People want to blame the higher education system. And as you guys know, I think that the fact that the Sierra Club and the Wesleyan University started this group to particularly do these things is an example of the political, educational, and social industrial complex conspiring to increase a centralization of things in America and to whittle down the ethos of America into their progressive utopian worldview. Of course, I believe that. It's evident to me that that's actually what's happening. But what I don't think it is worth doing is to look at any of the big causes that a lot of people on the right in America fight for, like, for example, the decentralization of higher education towards trade schools, which I support, by the way. You don't look at those things and then try to fit issues under the banner of what you already know. You look at a new problem and you try to explore the new problem as a new problem, as opposed to using your confirmation bias to fit that into what you already know. That's how you grow as an intellect. That's how you grow as a human being. And that's how you avoid the trap of status and vanity, which shackles the minds of otherwise great men and is one of the reasons for the mediocre state of our country right now. But we'll discuss that later. So I've already talked about the funding and everything like that. How about the ideas? Well, the ideas are very sinister, my friends. But let me still, man, before I close here. Environmentalists in America generally believe a few things. I'll split it into factions. There's one faction of environmentalists in America that have a spiritual affection for the environment. And in fact, they will believe that nature literally needs to be worshipped and tended to as if it is a child or a baby. And that man, if he does not do those things, and if he prides his own progress over those things, and if he uses nature to embolden himself, is committing an evil. So these people in this faction believe that human progress, the way it's happening, is evil. Now, there's two subgroups under this faction. There's one group over here that are the primitivists. The primitivists will literally say that modern society is evil and we should all go back to being hunter-gatherers, right? Okay, then there's the other group over here that are the eco-technologists. The eco-technologists will say, okay, human progress so far, post-industrial revolution has been bad, but we can make it better by endorsing green technologies. Okay, that's the faction, two subgroups. Okay, over here, there are the politically interested people that actually want to use environmentalism as a tool to install their own version of utopia on the world at any cost. The WEF, WHO, UN, these people are politically Machiavellian figures. They don't actually care about the environment. They simply see it as a very useful tool to install their version of their agenda upon the world. That doesn't require much elaboration, but you have the Club of Rome that came out in the 70s and said, okay, guys, we have an overpopulation problem in America, in the world, and so we need to actually cut down on some things. We need to endorse more environmentally friendly methods. And the Club of Rome's report actually jump-started the modern-day environmentalist movement. People don't understand that. The 1970s, the late 60s, early 70s, was actually the period in which the modern environmentalist movement was jump-started into its modern era, right? And it was influenced by several ideas. The man-nature relationship, the idea that man trying to be in control of nature and not being subservient to nature will destroy the world and will cause great harm. The city-country distinction, a Marxist term that was incorporated within environmentalism, which basically says that the city takes resources from the country and uses that to increase the amount of industrialization that increases pollution and environmentalist harm. Malthusianism, which says that the amount of resources we have on Earth is limited, and we should view those limitations in terms of population. Therefore, overpopulation will increase the problem of scarcity, and that will cause civilizations to collapse. What Malthusians don't actually understand is that as technology grows, as humans progress, we find better solutions for those problems, and the old models of population growth become obsolete because their consequences actually change in the face of human progress, which is why Malthus was wrong. That's why it's a fallacy, right? Then there's primitivism, which I just explained. All these ideas come together to roughly make the ethos of the modern-day environmentalist movement, right? But most people that are actually out there on the streets, most people in like the Sunrise Movement, these kids that are actually out there screaming, they don't know about the city-country distinction. They don't know about the man-nature relationship. They don't know about the Malthusianism. All they know is they have this emotional attachment to a particular cause. They want to, in their view, help the earth and save the earth and they are willing to do so in a way that is rather zealous. Okay, they're wrong. They're mistaken. I think that human progress can coincide with natural beauty and health, and I don't believe that embracing, that cutting down on human potential by getting rid of fossil fuels is going to actually save the environment. What it will do is simply shift the ills of environmental harms to other, perhaps even more scarring causes. Like, for example, mining lithium batteries, which causes massive land scars, massive environmental catastrophe, to boast electric cars and electric sources of energy that are supposedly environmentally friendly. There's always trade-offs when it comes to these things. So we have to actually analyze, okay, what on balance is going to be the best for the future of humanity? And then secondarily, how can that future benefit the environment? Well, a robust system of private property rights, where if the government were to dump mildew into a river like they did before, they couldn't actually show themselves in liability, they could be sued, which would therefore increase the amount of the level of environmental protection, as opposed to trusting it to a regulatory state whose interests don't actually lie in the principle. Their interests lie in ensuring their own power succeeds. There are many ways the modern world can help the environment that does not require sacrificing our civilization. It's stewardship, not environmentalism, that should be the calling credo of the American people who care about our Earth. But everything I just said to you matters not. If people on the right in America, if conservatives, don't get their act together and stop reducing these very complex scenarios to what they heard from an influencer who they like or what they think is true, we should always investigate, discover, and try to seek out why our opponents believe what they believe instead of dismissing them as a cult and being uncharitable with our time. It frustrates me. It grinds my gears. It makes me mad. Why? Because this is literally a problem, a crisis of moral education in the West, which is causing so much terror and causing so many issues that if it continues and we continue to remain defenseless, I'm sorry, the Western civilization that we know will fall. It will fall to forces of insanity, chaos, disorder that actually can be defeated if we just studied a little bit more, if we just knew a little bit more. And it's my hope that all of you would join me in the revolution of the mind to defeat these forces. Yes, it's interesting when these kids go ahead and scream at Vivek Ramaswamy or DeSantis and act like boorish idiots. It's interesting, but it's not the whole story. The whole story is much deeper. There is a sophisticated intellectual and financial and political consortium working together to poison the minds, wallets, and policy initiatives of Americans and to direct them towards alien aims that ought not to be admitted or abided by any American who loves his country and who seeks for the progress of humanity to remain a constant fact and not a distant, once realized but no longer existent reality. My friends, join the revolution of the mind. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. If you want to help me financially, be sure to donate on everything like that. It's in the comment section down below. My guys, I love you guys so much. Study history. Study philosophy. Look beyond the surface, please. I'm begging you. And most importantly, my friends, please stay pensive. Bye, guys.